I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. If you improve your English, this podcast is perfect for you.
So grab a snack, sit back, and let's dive into today's words. Okay, what are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is compliance. Then we will continue with extravagant and crush. Then a long face. And the final one is be out of one's league.
Let's start with the first word, Eric.
The first word is compliance.
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 That's an interesting word. So, what does compliance mean?
Compliance means following rules or doing what you are asked to do.
Yes, that's right. And we often use compliance with the preposition with. So we say compliance with the rules or compliance with instructions.
Exactly. Now, let's give some example sentences to help our listeners understand it better. For example, the company faced a fine because safety rules were not in compliance with safety regulations. This means that the company didn't follow the safety rules, so it had to pay money as a punishment.
Good example. Here's another one. Students must show compliance with the school dress code. It means that students need to follow the rules about what clothes they can wear to school.
Now, let's have a sample dialogue to show how we might use this word in a conversation.
Sarah, have you checked if our new product is in compliance with the health and safety standards?
Yes, I have. I've gone through all the regulations, and I'm happy to report that we're in full compliance.
That's excellent news. Compliance is very important for our business.
That was a good use of compliance in a work setting, Eric.
Yes, it's a common word in professional environments.
So, Eric, can you think of any everyday situations where we might use the word compliance?
Well, we might talk about compliance with traffic laws when driving. For example, the police officer stopped cars to check for compliance with seatbelt laws.
That's a good example. I can think of another one. Parents often talk about their children's compliance with house rules.
Good example.
It's interesting how a word that sounds quite formal can be used in simple everyday situations, too.
I agree.
Well, I think we've covered compliance pretty well. Shall we move on to our next word?
Yes, let's do that. We've got a few more words to explain today. The next word is extravagant.
Extravagant.
Extravagant is an adjective that describes something that is very expensive, fancy, or more than what is necessary or normal. It often refers to spending a lot of money or using too much of something.
That's right, Eric. Now, let me give an example sentence. The wedding was very extravagant, with thousands of flowers and a 7-tier cake. It means that the wedding was very fancy and expensive, with a lot more decorations and food than usual.
Good example, Lisa. Here's my example. His extravagant lifestyle includes owning 3 sports cars and a private jet. It means that his way of living is very expensive and involves spending a lot of money on luxury items that most people don't have.
Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our word extravagant.
Hey, John, did you hear about the new restaurant downtown?
No, I haven't. What's it like?
It's really extravagant. The menus are made of gold and they serve food on diamond-encrusted plates.
Wow, that does sound extravagant. It must be very expensive to eat there.
It is. A simple salad costs $100. Can you imagine? It's completely extravagant.
That was a great dialogue. Eric, have you ever been to an extravagant restaurant?
No, I haven't. I usually eat at simple places. How about you, Lisa?
Once for a special birthday. It was nice, but very expensive. Do you think it's good to be extravagant sometimes?
That's a good question. I think it's okay for special occasions, but not very often.
I agree. Being extravagant all the time is a waste of money.
Exactly. And I think having what you need is more important than having extravagant things. Once I bought a very expensive watch. It was too extravagant, and I felt bad about spending so much money. How about you?
I once bought extravagant shoes that I never wear because they're not comfortable. I learned that practical is often better than extravagant.
That's a good lesson. I hope our listeners understand extravagant things can be exciting, but they're not always necessary or practical.
Well, that's all we have time for with our word extravagant. Let's move on to our next word.
The next word is crush.
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 Oh, that's an interesting one. Crush has a few different meanings in English. One meaning is when something is pressed so hard that it becomes damaged or broken. For example, you might crush a can under your foot. The second meaning is when you really like someone in a romantic way.
Exactly. So, crush can be both a physical action and a way to describe a strong, romantic feeling for someone, especially when you like them, but they might not know it.
Right. Now, let's give some examples to help explain both meanings. Here's the first example. Be careful with the box or you'll crush the cookies inside. It means that if you press too hard on the box, the cookies will break or get damaged.
That's a good example, Lisa. Here's the second example. Emily has a crush on her classmate, Jake. It means that Emily likes Jake in a romantic way, but Jake might not know about it.
Great explanation, Eric. And it's important to know that when we talk about having a crush on someone, we usually use the preposition on. For example, have a crush on someone.
That's right. And now let's use crush in a short dialogue.
Mia, guess what? I think I have a crush on Rosa.
Really? That's exciting. But remember, when you see her, don't crush the flowers you bought for her in your excitement.
Good point. I'll be careful with them. I will not let anything crush my dreams.
Nice dialogue. In this dialogue, Alex tells Mia that he has romantic feelings for Rosa. That's what it means when he says he has a crush on Rosa.
And Mia makes a little joke by using the other meaning of crush. She tells Alex not to press too hard on the flowers and damage them accidentally. It shows how crush can be used in different ways in a conversation.
Eric, do you think it's common for people to talk about their crushes?
Definitely. Especially among younger people, it's common to talk about who you have a crush on.
That's true. Eric, do you remember your first crush?
I do. I had a crush on a girl in my class when I was about 11 years old. I was too shy to tell her, but I remember feeling very excited every time I saw her.
That's a sweet story. I think everyone has a similar experience, and it's nice to look back on those memories.
I agree. So, to all our listeners, remember the different meanings of crush. Whether you're talking about your feelings or something you don't want to damage, crush is a useful word to know.
Okay, Eric, let's move on to the next word.
The next word is a long face.
A long face.
A long face.
Okay, let's explain what a long face means. It's an idiom that describes someone who looks sad, unhappy, or disappointed. The expression shows that they are upset. For example, John had a long face when he found out he didn't get the job. It means that John looked sad or disappointed when he learned he didn't get the job he wanted.
Here's my example. Why the long face? Did something bad happen? It means that the speaker is asking why the other person looks sad or unhappy.
Now let's talk about how to use this phrase. A long face is usually used with verbs like have, wear, or pull. For example, we can say, he has a long face, or don't pull such a long face.
That's right. We often use it in questions too, like, why the long face? To ask someone why they look sad.
Good point, Eric. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our phrase, a long face.
Hi, sweetie, I'm home. Oh, why the long face?
Hi, Mom. I got a bad grade on my math test today.
I see. That's why you have such a long face. Don't worry, we can work on improving your math skills together.
Really? You're not angry?
Of course not. Everyone has bad days sometimes. There's no need to keep that long face. Let's make a study plan, instead of pulling such a long face.
That was a great dialogue. The mom and daughter used our phrase a long face several times to talk about the daughter's sad expression.
Yes, they did. Eric, do you have a long face about something?
Yes, I do sometimes. Last week, I had a long face because I lost my favorite book. How about you, Lisa?
I sometimes have a long face when it rains on my day off. Is it okay to show a long face, Eric?
That's a good question. I think it's normal to show how we feel, but we shouldn't always have a long face.
I agree. It's okay to look sad sometimes, but we should try to be positive too. How do you cheer yourself up when you have a long face?
I like to talk to friends or watch funny videos. What about you?
I enjoy going for a walk or listening to happy music. It helps me stop having a long face.
Additionally, sometimes people want to talk about why they're sad, and sometimes they don't. It's good to be kind when we see someone with a long face.
That's true. Well, that's all we have time for with our phrase, a long face. Let's move on to our last word of today.
The last word is be out of one's league.
Be out of one's league.
Be out of one's league is an idiom we use when we think someone or something is too good for us. It can be about people, like when someone is much more attractive or successful than us, or about things, like a job or a situation that we feel is too difficult.
Good explanation, Eric. When you say someone is out of your league, it means you feel they are better than you in some way, maybe because they are more attractive, more skilled, or more successful.
Right. It's often used in a romantic context, like when you like someone but you think they are too good for you. Additionally, it can also be used in other situations, like when a job or a task seems too challenging. Let me give an example to make this clearer. Tom likes Jessica, but he thinks she's out of his league. It means that Tom likes Jessica, but he feels she is too attractive or popular for him to date.
That's a good example, Eric. Now, here's the second example. I wanted to apply for the manager position, but I felt it was out of my league. It means the speaker thought the job was too difficult or required more experience than they had.
Great explanation, Lisa. So, as we can see, out of one's league can be used to describe both people and situations.
Yes, and it's important to note that this idiom is often about self-perception.
That's true. Now, let's use out of one's league in a short dialogue so our listeners can hear how it's used in conversation.
Mike, why don't you ask Sarah out? You've liked her for a long time.
I don't know, Anna. I feel like she's out of my league.
Don't say that. You're a great guy, and you never know until you try.
Maybe you're right. I'll think about it.
In this dialogue, Mike feels that Sarah is out of his league, meaning he thinks she's too good for him, but Anna encourages him to give it a try anyway.
Yes, and this shows how out of one's league can sometimes be about how we see ourselves, not about the actual situation.
Exactly. It's a common feeling, especially when it comes to dating or going for a challenging job.
Eric, do you think it's important to try even if we feel something is out of our league?
Definitely. Sometimes we underestimate ourselves. You might find out that the person or job isn't really out of your league after all.
That's a great point. We shouldn't let our fears stop us from going after what we want, even if we feel it's out of our league.
Absolutely. So to all our listeners, remember that out of your league is just a feeling. It's always worth trying because you might surprise yourself.
That's a great point, Eric. Okay, I think we have reached the end of today's episode.
Yes, Lisa. We hope you learned something new today.
Don't forget to subscribe and like our videos. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Welcome. I am Lisa.
And I am Eric. If you improve your English, this podcast is perfect for you.
So grab a snack, sit back, and let's dive into today's word. So, what are the words today, Eric?
The first word today is essential. Then we will continue with consent and to display, then to stand out. And the final one is break the ice. Before moving on, I want to say that 2 of today's words are requests from our followers. They wanted us to explain the words consent and to display. So, our followers, if you have some words you want us to explain, please write them down in the comments section.
Great. We are looking forward to the words from our followers. Okay, let's start with the first word, Eric.
The first word is essential.
Great. Let's explain what essential means.
Essential means very important or necessary. It's something that you really need and can't do without.
That's right. We use essential to talk about things that are crucial or absolutely needed.
Let me give an example sentence. Water is essential for life. It means that we can't live without water.
Good example. Here's another one. A passport is essential for international travel. It means that you must have a passport if you want to travel to other countries. You can't go without it.
That's a great example, Lisa. Now, let's have a sample dialogue to show how we might use this word in a conversation.
Okay, class, let's talk about what's essential for our camping trip next week.
Is a sleeping bag essential, Ms. Johnson?
Yes, a sleeping bag is absolutely essential. You'll need it to stay warm at night.
What about a phone? Is that essential too?
Well, a phone can be useful, but it's not essential. The most essential items are food, water, and warm clothes.
That was a good use of essential in context. I really like how it shows the difference between things that are essential and things that are just nice to have.
Yes, it's a useful word for setting priorities. So, Eric, what do you think is essential for learning a new language?
Well, I think, first of all, studying regularly is essential for learning a language. You need to keep on using it to improve.
I agree with that. I also think having a good dictionary is essential for language learners. It helps you understand new words.
That's true. It's essential to have tools that help you learn.
Definitely. You know, I find it interesting that essential can be different depending on the situation and people.
You're right. For example, a coat is essential in cold weather, but not in hot weather or for people living in hot countries.
Exactly. Essential things for everybody can change based on their needs and conditions.
That's right, Lisa. Well, I think we've covered essential pretty well. Essential is an essential word for English learners to know.
Uh-huh. Nice wordplay, Eric.
Thank you, Lisa.
Shall we move on to our next word?
Yes, let's do that. We still have a few more essential words to explain today.
Great. What's next on our list?
The next word is consent.
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 Consent is a noun, and it means to give permission or to agree to something. When you give your consent, you are saying, like, yes, it's okay. Or, okay, you can do it.
Yes, that's a good way to put it, Lisa. Now, let's look at an example sentence. She gave her consent to the project. It means that she agreed to the project or said it was okay to move forward with it.
Here's another example. He asked for her consent before sharing the photo. It means that he wanted to make sure she was okay with him sharing the photo, so he asked her first.
It's also important to remember that consent can be both a noun and a verb. As a verb, it changes slightly to consent to. For example, she consented to the plan, which means she agreed to the plan.
Yes, good point, Eric. Now, let's give our listeners a short dialogue to see how consent can be used in a conversation.
We need to get the manager's consent before we start this new project.
I agree. Without her consent, we can't move forward.
Let's write an email to ask for her consent today.
In this dialogue, Anna and Mike are talking about needing their manager's consent before starting a new project. Anna says they need to get the manager's consent, meaning they need to get her permission because they can't continue without the manager saying it's okay.
Exactly, Eric. So, in this conversation, they use the word consent 3 times, each time meaning permission or agreement.
Yes, Lisa, consent is a very important word in both professional and personal situations. Remember to always ask for consent when something might affect someone else. It's both polite and necessary. What do you think, Lisa? Is it hard to ask for consent sometimes?
I think it can be a little hard, especially if you're not sure what the other person will say. But it's always better to ask for consent. Asking for consent shows respect for the other person's feelings and choices.
Yes, I think so. Sometimes people forget or think it's not necessary, but it really is, whether it's something small, like sharing a photo, or something bigger.
I completely agree, Eric. And for our listeners, it's important to practice using the word consent correctly in sentences. It will help you be more polite and clear in your communication.
Yes, and remember the difference between consent as a noun and as a verb. It's a useful word to know in many different situations.
That's right. We hope our followers now have a better understanding of the word consent and how to use it. Let's move on to the next.
The next word is to display.
To display.
To display. To display is a verb that means to show something or put it where people can see it clearly. It can be used for objects, information, or even feelings. For example, the museum displays many old paintings.
Good example. It means that the museum shows or exhibits many old paintings for visitors to see.
Exactly. Can you give the next example, Lisa?
Sure. Here's my example. John likes to display his trophies on a shelf in his room. It means that John puts his trophies on a shelf in his room so that people can see them easily.
That's right. We can also use display as a noun, like a display of flowers or on display in the shop window.
Good point, Eric. Now, let's listen to a short dialogue using our word display.
Hi, Sarah. Can you help me display these new products?
Sure. Where do you want to display them?
Let's display the books on this shelf and the toys in the window display.
Okay. Should we display the prices too?
Yes, please. It's important to display the prices clearly for customers.
That was a great dialogue. The shop owner and Sarah used our word display several times to talk about showing products in the shop.
I agree. Good displays can make things look more interesting or beautiful. Have you ever seen a display that really impressed you?
Yes, I remember. A great window display in a big city store. The clothes and decorations looked amazing. What about you, Eric?
I loved a display of old cars I saw at a museum. It made me feel like I was back in time. A good display can make people excited or interested in something.
Yes. Sometimes a nice display in a shop window makes me want to go inside and buy. Well, that's all we have time for with our word display. Let's move on to our next word.
The next word is stand out.
Stand out.
Stand out. Stand out is a phrasal verb. It means to be very noticeable or to be different from others in a way that is easy to see. When something or someone stands out, they are easily seen or noticed, because they are different or special.
That's right. We use stand out when we want to describe something that catches our attention or is remarkable.
Let me give an example sentence. Her bright red hair made her stand out in the crowd. It means that because of her red hair, people easily noticed her among many other people.
Here's another one. John's presentation stood out as the best in the class. It means that John's presentation was noticeably better than all the other presentations in the class.
That's a great example, Lisa. It's important to note that stand out is a phrasal verb. We can use it with from, like stand out from the rest.
Now, let's have a sample dialogue to show how we might use this phrase in a conversation.
We need to make our new product stand out from our competitors.
I agree. How can we make it stand out?
Well, we could use bright colors for the packaging. That would make it stand out on store shelves.
That's a good idea. We could also add a unique feature that our competitors don't have.
Excellent suggestion. That would really make our product stand out in the market.
That was a good use of stand out in a business context. I like how it showed different ways something can stand out.
Yes, it's a versatile phrase. So, Eric, have you ever done anything to try to stand out?
Well, when I was applying for jobs, I tried to make my resume stand out by using a creative design. What about you, Lisa?
That's a good idea. I once wore a very colorful outfit to a party to stand out. It worked. Everyone noticed me.
That's fun. It's interesting how we can stand out in different ways, isn't it?
Definitely. Sometimes standing out can be about looks, like in my example, but other times it's about skills or actions.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've covered stand out pretty thoroughly. This explanation really stands out, doesn't it?
Yes, I think our listeners will understand this phrase well now. What's next on our list?
This is our last word of today. The last word is break the ice.
Oh, that's an interesting phrase. Let's explain what it means.
Break the ice is an idiom that means to do or say something to make people feel more comfortable in a social situation, especially when they don't know each other well.
That's right. It's often used when people are meeting for the first time or when there's an awkward silence in a conversation.
Let me give an example sentence. The teacher asked everyone to introduce themselves to break the ice on the first day of class. It means that the teacher wanted the students to feel more comfortable by talking about themselves.
Good example. Here's another one. At the party, John told a funny joke to break the ice. It means that John used humor to make people feel more relaxed and start talking to each other.
Now, let's have a sample dialogue to show how we might use this phrase in a conversation.
Hey, Mike. How was the first meeting with your new team at work?
It was a bit awkward at first. No one was talking much.
Oh no, what did you do?
Well, I decided to break the ice by asking everyone about their favorite hobbies.
That's a good idea. Did it work?
Yes, it really helped to break the ice. Soon, everyone was chatting and laughing.
That was a good use of break the ice in context. So, Eric, can you think of a time when you had to break the ice?
Well, when I joined a new sports club, I broke the ice by asking people about their favorite teams. What about you, Lisa?
Oh, I once broke the ice at a party by starting a fun group game. It really helped everyone relax and start talking.
That's a great way to break the ice. Games can be very effective for that.
Definitely. It's interesting how many different ways there are to break the ice, isn't it?
Yes, it is. I think the key is to find something that makes people feel comfortable and encourages them to talk.
I agree. Breaking the ice can really help in making new friends or starting new relationships.
Well said, Lisa. Okay, I think we have reached the end of today's episode.
Yes, Eric. We hope you learned something new today.
Don't forget to subscribe and like our videos. See you next time.
Bye-bye.